All right, so today we are going to start with our properties, and we'll be starting with the text property. And based on these two property, we are going to branch into this color representation and CSS units because they are very important there when you're dealing with color or when you're dealing with some of this property that requires length. And when you're using length, you need to specify the units of the value that you're using there. So you want this thing to be from the this thing is starting from here and you want it to end here, so you need to specify the length, like the measurement of that space that you need on the page, not just the number alone. You need to specify the unit because CSS come with different units that you can use, and based on that unit, the number you have beside them is going to behave differently, even though it's the same number that you have there, but the unit will determine how that number is going to be calculated by the browser there. And how is the browser going to be doing this in? I will explain how each one of the units works. So we're going to be starting with this color. This is a property. I've been using it since, that you can use to change the text color. Anytime you have a text and you want to change the color, what you use is this color property. For example, on the page, we are looking for the H1 and I want to change the color property. But when you want to change the color property, there are different ways of giving colors to this particular property, like different ways of specifying your color. One of the way that I'm using right now is known as the named color. You just mention the name of the color that you know, and it's going to work. And any one of them that is valid, you see that VS Code is going to show this thing beside it. But as you can see at the top here, it's representing it another way. So you need to know what is that RGB. As you can see, is the second on the list there. So you can use the name of the color, which is something I'm not going to be using like that when we're actually working on a real sense, because most of the color you want to use, they are not these sharp color. There's color that you mix different colors together to achieve it. And how do you do that? That's where this RGB comes in, which is a function in CSS that you can use to mix three colors together, which is the red, green, and blue. So the job of this RGB is to take the amount of red, amount of green, amount of the blue, then combine it together to form another secondary color. So they are referred to as primary color. Mixing them together will now give you another set of color. And what are the value? So this is the value for red. That's what I'm calling X here. So whatever you be passing here is the value for green. And whatever you be passing here is the value for blue. And the valid value you can use there is 0 to 255. You can't use any number apart from that. So here now, instead of me using that name color, I can just come here, RGB, then I need to supply the value for the red, green, and blue. So here I can use 35 for, let me just use 100, and this is going to be 120 like this. And as you can see, it's giving us this color. But if you look at it here, I put comma here, but here I did not put a comma. So you can do it like this, or you do it like that away, or you only see me using this comma a lot because it's quite easier to separate the number. If you don't want to use that, you can just use the space. So you can use space. You can see that it's giving us the same thing. So whether you use comma, but this one now you can close the gap once you, because you know that this is the first number, this is the second one, the third one. But with this now, you need to use space to separate the number. So you can use this, which is kind of a new way, but almost all the new browsers support it. But for older browser, who use older browser these days, but you can't tell. So for it to work on some other browser, it's better you use the one with the comma here like this. So this is another way of representing color. And once I save and it gets to the screen, we should have the color applied. You can see that the color is cool. It's not just blue, it's not just red, and it's not just green. It's the mixture of the three colors. But we have more of green. We have more of blue rather, because as you can see, blue is having more number. Again, too, we have low red, we have small red because the number is really small like that. So, and if you want pure red, you can actually do it by using 255, which means you are using all the red, but there is nothing like green, and there's nothing like, so this is just like you saying red at the top there and saving it. As you can see, we have the same thing. So what I have here, as you can see, 25500 like that. So no green and no blue. So which means we only have red. Or if you want to have the two of them, so this one too is going to be 255. So now you are mixing red and green together, which is giving us this kind of a yellowish color like that. Or this one too, you put in, so if you put all of them, then you are having white. Like three of them, 255, 255, 255, it is going to give you white. And again, too, if none of them is here, then you are going to get black. So 0, 0, this one will give you black because no red, no green, no blue. So since we don't have anything, what you are going to have there is just black. So these are another way of representing color, which I'm going to be using a lot later on there, because this one make it easier for us to mix different colors together and give us a nice not this sharp color that it will just be shining and not looking good on the screen. If you look at this, it looks like this is black, but this is not actually full black there. So it's kind of having some, you know, other color attached to it there like that. So that's how to apply the color. Apart from that, we have this other way known as this HL cell. So the H there is known as the U. So we have the HL cell like that. So U, and you have the saturation and you have the lightness like this. We determine the light of the color. So these two, saturation and lightness, they are percentage. While the U is the actual color you are talking about. So each color that we have there, they are attached on a what we call color wheel. So we have something referred to as color wheel, and on that color wheel, you have different color there, and there are number attached to them based on the circle stuff, as you can see. So red is on 0, and it's still the same thing when you go back to 360. So whether you say 360 or 0, you are still talking about red, because 360, when you move from 0 and you go back, you're still going back to 0, even though it is 360. And as you can see, around that maybe 20 or something, you have this orange, then it moves gradually to yellow, then from there it moves gradually to red. So this is the color wheel. So on this color wheel now, there's a number attached to all this color. So, and this color now, you can now have different shades of them. That's where the saturation comes in. With this one, you can, oh, I want this color to be pure, I want it to be less pure. So that's what you'll be using saturation for. So 100% saturated means you have the color there, like it's 100% red or 100% blue. And again, this is what you can use to create the light there. So whether you want it to be a darker red or you want to be a light red like that. So you can now use this HSL to control the lightness and the saturation of the color that you want. So here X is a number, but Y and Z are percentage. As you can see here, X is between 0 to 360. If you use any number greater than 360, to still convert it to a number in between, because it will just divide the number by 360, you know, it will still give you something in between this range like that. So here we can just use the color, then HL cell like this. So the first thing we need to specify is the color wheel number, the color we want to pick on the wheel. For example, here I'm using 0, which is the same thing as red. Then the next thing is what is the pureness of this red. So using 50% means I'm using half red, not the full red. Again, too, what is the lightness of that color? So you're using 50% here too. So you can see it's giving us red, but it's not pure red. And at the same time, the lightness in between the dark and light, because it's 50% halfway. But if you go above 50, you are going to the light area. If you go below 50, you are going to the dark area like that. So 0 means no light, which means black. It means you don't have anything. And 100 means there is a lot of light. So everything will turn to white, because when there is a lot of light in a particular room, everything will just be white. But you can just do 50 like this. Then for the saturation, again, I can use 100. And as you can see, it's going to give us that our pure red color, because we are using 100% of the red like that. Or I can just use 10%. So it's still red, but we are only getting 10% of that red. And this thing is really powerful because I can actually use the same thing for another color. I don't need to change all this other one. The only thing I will just be updating is the hue, because that's what changes the color. This one is just the variant of that color that you are looking for. So here I can use 270, which is around that blue or so. And again, go to this maybe 70%. So you can see it's giving us this kind of a purple color like that. So going back to the color wheel, which is going, as you can see, is around somewhere here. You know, this is 0, this is 90, and this is 180, and around here you'll be getting that. So that's how it works. So if I want, I can, if maybe I want this gray now, I need to be using something like 70, 80, 90, and so forth like that, so that I can have that color. But most of this thing, you'll not be the one that will be generating all this color from your head. The design you want to work on will give you all the necessary color, but you need to know how to use them. So that's the reason why we are talking about all this thing. Most of the time, you don't need to do this, but if you want to do it yourself, so find the color, know the hue number, then you put it and you put the saturation. So this same color now, I can generate different shade based on my design. So if I want the same 70%, but I want it to have, I want the lighter version of it, I just need to increase the lightness, so maybe to around that 70, and it's going to, or if I want a darker version of it, so I can just use maybe like 20 like this, and it's going to give us. And again, I can do the same thing for background color later on, which is going to be HSL, the same color, but you know, the background, the color is dark like that, but I can make the fonts to be can you see the kind of a design is giving us? Like, it looks nice because it's the same color we're using. The only thing we're just tweaking is just the lightness, and it's giving us this kind of a design. So this is what most of design ideas, you can see the same thing here. It's the same color, but the shade is different. It's the same orange, but the background is using the light version of it, while the text is using the dark version of that color. You can create it too using the RGB, but it's more easier to do with this HSL, because you can just control the lightness and the saturation like that, just like what is going on this thing like that. So which is what you, even though the printing they use this what they even use this don't forget CYMK, but it's still they kind of are the same thing here like that, which you have cyan, magenta, and whatever stuff. But yeah, you have one color, but you can change the shade of that color there like that. So the other one that we have is this hexadecimal, which is another way of representing your color. So this is another way that you can use to represent color. So we have color again, and this time we'll start with the hash, then followed by the hexadecimal number. Can be 3, can be 4, it can be 6, and it can even be 8. Or you won't be using that 8 for now. What you can be using is 3. For example, here, what you are doing here, you are mixing hexadecimal number together. Hexadecimal is just 0 to 9, and 8 to F for 10 to 15, like that, because it's based on base 16. So 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 9. Then you now have A for 10 and F for 15. So mixing those numbers together, you can use it to create colors too. For example, A, B, C, because they are still valid hexadecimal number, because they are in the range of this A to F. And as you can see, it's giving me the color that I want there. Or it can even be 4 like this. It will still work. As you can see that the color change, because I'm adding more to the color there like that. As you can see, the RGBA that this thing is bringing out like that, but that's not what I want right now. So I want this thing to get if I want, I can use 62, which is going to be let's just use F. FF means white, but I don't want white, so FE, which is gray. So it's going to go to around that gray side of that color. But All this thing, you won't be doing it in your head. As you can see, VS Code have the tools for you to just pick the color you want, and as you can see, it will generate the correct code. But you need to know what this thing all about. So that's the reason why we are talking about it. But you won't be cramming any of this thing. Whatever color you want to work with, get the code online on a VS Code or anywhere, depending on the design you are working on. Then you apply it on the element, whether it is a background or it is a text color that you want like that. As you can see, it's cool compared to you using all this name color like red, blue, whatever. So they're always too sharp, or they have a lot of contrast there like that. So we don't want that. We want this kind of a cool color there. So these are the these are the four major ways of representing color for now. Later on, we're still going to be talking about the alpha channel, which is the transparency level. Like you want to be able to see what is at the back of the color. Right now, we can't see what is at the back of the color, but later on, when we get to the background, you should be able to see what is at the back of the color. So that's why we're going to be introducing the alpha channel, and that's where this RGBA RGB will turn to RGBA. So right now we only have RGB, but we have another mode known as RGB A like this, and this A, this is where you'll be specifying the alpha channel. What is the transparency level? So and the number there is between 1 and 0. 0 means that the stuff is totally transparent. You can see everything at the back. So which means you cannot see the color again. And 1 means that you cannot see anything at the back. So which means you can only see that color alone. Then now using the number between 0 and 1, then you create this kind of a transparency level that you want. And that's what is going on here. This is actually using alpha channel of 1 by default. So it only have 1 there like that. So that's the reason why you cannot see anything at the back. But you can actually add the alpha channel to the list. But right now we don't need it. This is what is there by default. If you don't specify it like that. But if you specify the stuff, then it's going to use it to determine the level that you want this thing to be like that. So these are different ways of representing colors. So as from this moment on, I can use any one of them. So this red that is here, I can change it to other mode if I want. So you can, in VS Code, you can change from one mode to another one. Just click on this. As you can see, it will change the mode from one to the other, because you can represent color in this different mode and it's still going to be the same color. So as you can see, this is how to represent it using hexadecimal. This is how to represent the same color. You can see 100% of this and 50% transparent, the 50% lightness like that, because there's no way you have 100%. If you have 100%, that means it's white. Once you have 100%, it is white. Once you have 0%, it is black. So in order for you to have that red without too much of a light or darkness there, just use half, which is going to be in between like that. So this is how this thing works. This is not all. We have a lot of other ways of representing color, like the ochre, whatever stuff like that. So, but all those ones, they are just addition. As you can see, they are new additions that is not yet supported by all the browser. You don't want to be using something that it will work on this person browser and it's not working, and or somebody is doing something and it's really different. So this something that has been there right from day one, and it is tested to be working everywhere like that. So the other thing we have here is the font size. So which is what you can use to change the size of the text. So this one is used to change the size of the text. As you can see that all your H1 by default, they are always the biggest or the highest text on the page, but you can actually change that. Any text, you can increase their size or reduce the size. So to do that, we have the font size. But when you're using font size, as you can see here, the value you'll be using required units that you need to put there. And in CSS, we have different units that you can use. As you can see, like percentage, we have tab, cm, centimeter, inches, dvi, em, ex, fr, and so forth like that. But for now, the only thing we just need are this one. So under absolute units, this one unit that doesn't change. irrespective of what is going on the page. When you say this thing should be 30, it's always going to be 30 to the browser. So 20 is always going to be 20, no matter what is going on the page. But when you're talking about relative, all this one, they are depending on what is going on the page. So whatever they are depending on, if that thing change, they will calculate their new value. So if you start with 20, and whatever they are depending on that change, that 20 might actually change to 30 later on, or it might even go to 200, depending on what that thing is, or the unit is depending on. But when it is pixels, because one of them is this pixels, we have like centimeter, that you know, those units that in like inches, you can use them too. But the major one we use is this px, because that's how the screen are being measured. You measure screen by pixels. So the pixels here now, from this white area to this white area, that's the weight of the box. So there's a number attached to that stuff based on my screen that I'm using right now. And again, from this top here to this side, there's another length, which is what we call the height of it. So you can now limit your box to a particular width, or to a particular height, or to a particular size based on where you want it to stop. And these values that you'll be using, you don't just specify them like that. You have to put the unit that you want to use, and based on that unit, the browser knows what to do. And one of the units here is this px, which is what I mentioned, that it doesn't change. It's always the same value that you put there. For example, here now, if I use 40px, what I'm saying is that the size of the text is going to be 40 pixels. So once you get to the screen, the browser will calculate 40 pixels. And no matter what is going on the page, it will always maintain that 40 pixels. Whether I increase my screen, or I don't increase my screen, or I do something else later on, it will always maintain that particular value. For example, let me quickly use this width so that you can see all this in action, but I will talk more about it later on. So here I have 100 pixels. What I'm saying is that the width of this box will not be more and less than this value. So no matter what is inside it, and as you can see now, the box has been reduced. So it's not getting to the edge again, or I can just use 300, save, and as you can see, it will maintain that particular value. No matter what is going on the screen, as you can see, it maintains that size, doesn't change. But there are some of these units that they are depending on the weight of the browser, or the height of the browser, or the container where they are being used, and so forth like that. So once that thing change, you see that they will recalculate the value. Even though it's the same number you are using there, but that number is not the major thing. The unit beside it is what is for that, because that's what determines how the browser is going to calculate whatever you are doing on that line there. And for the absolutes, they don't change at all. No matter what is going on, whether you increase your browser screen, or you reduce your browser screen, or you change something on the page, doesn't care. It will always be that 300 pixels wide. Whether you're using it on mobile or desktop, it will maintain that size. If the mobile is not up to that, then it means it will go outside of the screen. For example, here now, if I use 3000, this width is not up to 3000. So if I save it, you see that, can you see now? You see that it will start going left and right like that. So it doesn't care what is going on the page, because you are using the absolute unit, which is what the browser uses. So it will calculate that 3000 pixels from this side all the way to wherever it needs to stop, because I mentioned about the width. And if it's the font size too that I mentioned there, well, instead of me using 40, but use 100 pixels, you see that it will increase the stop, and which means this thing now will be more than the page you are working on. But most of the time, you don't want this thing to keep increasing anyhow like this. You want the value to be changing based on the screen, or based on whatever the user sets on their device. And that's where the relative unit comes in, like that. Because you don't want the thing to just be changing anyhow like this. You want it to depend on what is going on the page. And one of the relative units we have here is this rem. So, and what does this rem do? It's just like this px2. Instead of putting it, we can use rem like this. And how does rem work? As you can see now, can you see that it has changed the value? So when I was using pixels, you know, it's just, as you can see, it changed it to rem. So That's an extension that I'm using here to convert rem to pixels or pixels to rem, because you'll be using rem a lot later on. But now let me just use 3 rem. As you can see, the final value is actually 48. But where is it getting that 48 from? How does it calculate that 48? So that's where relative comes in, because they are depending on something. So that was something that is depending on is what this extension is using to calculate the final value. But how do you know what it's using? So anytime you're dealing with rem there, it always uses the font size of this HTML to calculate the final value. So whatever the font size of the HTML, that's what is going to use to calculate the final value. It will multiply this font size by whatever number you have beside it. And by default, HTML is using font size of that 16 pixels. If you don't change it, you can see that it is 1 rem. 1 rem is the same thing as 16 pixels if you don't change the browser setting. And how do I know all this? Or how do you check? Your browser actually comes with what we call the dev tools. So as a developer, you should be able to see what the browser is doing behind the scene. And in order for you to do that, so the browser comes with a tool called the dev tool. And you're going to find it under this more tool, yes. And as you can see, developer tools. But I always use the shortcut because it's something you'll be using every time. So you can use this Control Shift and the I to bring it. So Control, then Shift, then I, like this. You see that it will pop out. This is the dev tools, but my own is showing by the side. This is not how it's going to be by default, because I'm the one I changed the setting and based on the browser you are using. So each browser comes with their own set of the way it's displayed. So going to this side like that, Control Shift I is the same command. As you can see that the way it displays here is quite different, but it's still the same functionality. What you are seeing here, going back to that browser there, and let me click on the one that I need, which is this one here. As you can see, it's still the same thing. So it has its own elements. It has the console, which we'll be using later on when we get to JavaScript. But for now, what we're going to be using is this element. That's where you're going to see whatever you type in your code, and you're going to be seeing them on the page. So this is whatever the browser is displaying on the screen. Like everything you type in your code, you are going to see them here. And anyone that you click on, you are going to see the CSS. And as you can see that some stuff are going on. It's drawing line on top of this. So what is telling you that it's not using those one. The one is using is the one that did not have line. Because later on when you apply something and you see that it's not working, you have to come here and see what the browser is in. So here it's telling us all this one, I'm not using them. The only one I'm using is just this one here like that. So if I activate it back, as you can see, it's you applying this color, and if I remove it, as you can see now, it changes back to the next one that follows it like that. Again too, it's not using this font size at all. If I want to activate it, it's just by clicking on it or disable it if I don't need it. And again too, as you can see, it has the width of 3 rem. But I told you this is not the final value that the browser is going to. Can you see that it's showing us the final value? That's 48. So you can actually go under this computed here, under the computed, and you scroll down, you see the final value. You can see the font size is what? 32 pixels. The height of the box, no, we don't know it, but here you are going to see the height. Whatever value the browser is using, you are going to see all of them. So it's not for you to update it or leave it the way it is. Some of them, they are being applied by browser by default. And that's why I say that this one is gray out and it is slant. It means we are not the one applying it. It's auto. So it's kind of adjusting it based on the content that is inside it. So, but if you scroll down, you see the width that we apply here is showing 48 pixels. Whereas what we actually type is 3 rem. How does it convert it to pixels? It will multiply it by the font size of the HTML. And how do you get the font size of the HTML? Just click on that element. Again, go to the computed, and can you see the font size is 16 by default. But I can actually update it. So from here now, instead of me using the 16, I can use 26. And you see that all these things, I'm not going to touch them, but they will change. You see that I did not touch them. The value that I'm using before is still the same 3 rem. But now the stuff has changed. So if you go back to that page and you check the width, can you see it's now 78? That's what we call relative. whatever they depend on, once that thing change, they will recalculate the value based on whatever you put beside it. So if you scroll up to the HTML and you select it, can you see the font size is now 26. So what rem will do is that it will multiply that 3 by this 26. So whatever the font size of HTML, rem is, that's what is depending on. Once that thing change, it will recalculate the new value. You don't need to change the value, and that's what we need later on, because we want some stuff to change based on the setting that the user set up. Because that font size on HTML can actually be set on the font. When you increase your font's this thing and you go to some site, you see that the site too will get bigger because they are using that rem. Rem unit is what we normally use for text because we want it to increase based on what the user wants. So on their phone, they want their text to be bigger. So if you use pixels, for example, here, assuming I use pixels here, it will never change. So if you say 3 pixels, that's what is always going to be there, no matter what you are doing on the page there. So going back to the H1, as you can see, it's always going to be 3. It never change. It doesn't depend on anything. That's the final value that the browser will use. But the rem and some other units, they are depending on what is going on the page. And for the rem, is depending on the font size of the HTML. Once the font size of the HTML change, it will recalculate its new value there. And if you don't change the font size of the HTML, it's always default to 16. If the browser is not changed, like if you do not change your browser setting or your phone setting, every system that we have, every browser, they are set to 16 by default. All of them use 16, whether on system or on phone. Except if you change it. If you change it, that's when the thing will recalculate and be using the new value. And you now see that the text is really big or small, depending on what you set there like that. So other type of unit that we have there is this percentage. We have this viewport width, and we have this viewport height. I will explain this one for now because they are kind of easier there. But once we get to the box property later on, I'll be explaining that this in the percentage own. But this one too is percentage, just that the way it's calculating percentage is quite different. So when you're talking about the viewport width, this one is talking about 100% of this entire white area here. So from here to here is the viewport width. Like that in your browser, that width of that white area, that's what we call the viewport width. Then for the height, that's what we call the viewport height. So if from here to here is the viewport height, then from here to here where your white stop, that's the viewport width. So this VW now, you can use it to take percentage of that width that is here. So if the width that is here maybe is 200, then you want to take maybe 30% of that or 20% of that and so forth. Because this thing used to change. If you look at it now, as you can see at the top, the width is changing. Right now it is 532. So now I can say that 532, I want to take 50% of it. You know, the thing can change. I don't know what is going to be there, but whatever that is there, take 50% of it. So that's what this viewport width comes in there. For example, here now, this box now, instead of us using rem, what we can do is to use 50 viewport width. So once I save it now, you see that all these boxes, can you see, they are now half of that parent. And once the stuff change, it will recalculate. As you can see, it's changing because the entire stuff has changed. You know, now is 350. So if I increase it, it's now 630. So it needs to recalculate 50% of that stuff. So which is only on small screen, it will take half of it. When your big screen, it will take half of it. Not because there's no way you know the width of the browser that the person is using. So you have to use some of these dynamic units that change based on the viewport width or height or the font size and so forth like that. So if you want to depend, like if I change the height now, you see that nothing will happen because it's not depending on the height of the stuff. But if I want it to depend on the height too, so instead of me using viewport VW, it will now be VH. So now saving it, you see that the calculation will be different. So if I change the width, nothing will happen because it's not depending on that again. It's only depending on the height of the box. So that's how all these things works. But for now, anywhere I need to apply units, I will be using rem for now. And later on, I will talk about this percentage. No. The one you can only use one unit. Whatever unit you have beside it, that's what is following. Whatever you have beside here, whatever value you're applying, the unit there, that's what it's using. So it doesn't care about it. Since you use VW, it only cares. That's why you see that after changing the weight, it did not change. Again, so when we're using the VW, changing the height, nothing happened because it's only depending on that unit. Whatever unit beside you have beside the number, that's what you're using. And again, VW is not the same thing as the pixels. So scrolling up, look at the way it is when you're using pixels. Look at the way it is when you're using RAM. Look at the way it is when you're using the VW. So each one of them have what they are depending on. And what is depending on is what is going to use to calculate the final value. So it's not just about the 50 that's beside it, but this unit too is very important like that. But typing 50 alone like this, as you can see, is not doing anything. It will just go back to 100% because you are using invalid value like that. So as you can see what he's saying now, he said invalid property value, because when you are dealing with weight, the units have to be there. So now if I apply 50, well, why is it not changing? Once you come here, you see what the browser is doing. So it's telling you the property is right, but the value is not right. And again, if you hover on it, it will tell you what is going on. For all this one too, it's not using. Once you see line, it's telling you that it's not using that value, because we are going to be using this thing a lot later on. In case we have any problem or you want to see what the browser is doing behind the scene, you need to use the dev tools to see what is going on. It's not just about the page alone. When you are communicating with the API later on, it have all the tooling that you see how is doing the communication, how the result is coming back, and what are the status of the API and so forth like that. So the browser comes with all this tooling that you can use as a developer to know what is going on the page there. So we've talked about this color. We've talked about this font size. The other one we have is this font family here, which allows you to change the interface of your text, like the family. But if you look at the text here now, the way it's displaying on our side is quite different from the way it's showing on Remita side. The way their own R is, as you can see, their A. Look at the R here. Look at this Y, it matters, and so forth like that. Look at the W, look at the A, look at the R, compared to our own. So look at our A. Look at the way it's being displayed. So we can use font family to change the interface or the font face of our text. And in order for you to do that, you need to specify the font that you want to use by using font family. So when you're talking about the font family, each font that you want to use, they actually come from a family. That's why the name too is font family. We have font. Font is what you can use to change anything about your text. Under the font, that's where you have the size. Under it too, we have family. What is the interface of the text? So we have different family that you can use. One of the family here is a monospace. We look like typewriter. So anything like typewriter come from this family like that. As you can see, it will change, which is quite different from every other content. Again, we have cursive. Any text that used to be in a slant or curve, whatever stuff, they come from the family. But you can actually mention the font you want to out of this place. Any slant font. No, I will get there. Yes, once you have the name of the font, and that font has to be on your system. But if it's not on your system, you can actually connect to external fonts later on. But for now, we'll be using the one that is on the system. So again, another type of family we have, which is what we have been using since, is serif. So what's serif? They are the one that have this pencil mouth. You can see they always have this pencil mouth there. Again, so we have another one, which is this sans serif. So since sans serif, that one just remove all the pencil out of the so if I save it now, you see that this thing will be different from what we have. Save now, what's going on? Yeah, as you can see now, the pencil mouth is no more there like that. Serif, it have all this pencil, which is the old font that we like all these kind of a pencil. Look at the T, look at the R. They always have this sharp edge there. But once you use sans, that one is going to remove all the sharp edge, just have the normal. So different fonts actually come from this family. Different fonts too come from that serif. And again, VS Code have a lot of them that you can use out of the box already. As you can see, VS Code have some of the fonts you can quickly use. So for example, if I use this Swigo, as you can see, all these Lucida Sans regular, Lucida grade, that one, this Geneva, then Bandana, all of them they are coming from sans serif. But why am I, or why is it saying specifying different fonts? What this thing is doing is that when this one is not available, try this one. When that one, keep trying them, then if none of them is available, just use the default one. No, each family have their default font. When you just say sans serif, this is the default one is bringing out. But that doesn't mean that's really sans serif you have. So you can have something like this, Lucida Sans. All of them, they are part of that sans serif. They look alike, but there's little difference in between them like that. So saving this one now, as you can see, so that it has changed compared to the way it is before. Look at this C. Look at this scene. This is Lucida Sans. Then let me go back to normal Sans, which is the default one. Can you see the C? So that it's different. See here now, it's kind of a really curve. Then going back into that other one, can you see? It's different. Even though it's coming from that family, but some of the texts are actually different from each other based on the font that you are using. And there's a lot of them that you can use, which you know already. For example, like this area black now. You know about it. As you can see, that's what it will be. But it's coming from that sans serif. But again, any font that you know that it have illegal character, they should always be inside the quotes like that. So, and again, you can't just use anything that is not on your system. So if I try to use a font that is on my system, for example, like test, there is nothing like test. As you can see, it will go back to the default font. Once you use anything that the browser doesn't recognize, it will go back to the default one, which is sans serif, this serif that is there. And that's the reason why when you mention a font, it's always good to put the family at the end, so that if it cannot find that one, it will just try the next one. So you separate all of them by comma here. So if it can find it, it will use it. If it cannot find it, it will try the next one that follows. So if I save it now, even though it's not there, so it's not using the default one from here. But if it can find this one, it will not even bother to do the second one or the third one. So if I use this Roboto like this is another font. As you can see that it's changed because I have this Roboto on my system like that. Or you have different fonts that you can use. As you can see here, this is a different font, but it's coming from sans serif family. The same thing too here too. These people, they are using sans serif font like that. Why? Because all the sans serif don't have pencil mark. But which one are they using? I don't know. But to me, it looks like they're using Inter or something. But how do you get it? Just go to DevTools. DevTools will tell you whatever is going on. As you can see, this is the H1. So if you inspect can you see that they're using REM now? So anytime you're dealing with font, it's REM you use because you want it to depend on this thing. So can you see the font family? They are using what? Inter, Railway, and then they now have serif. So if any of this one is not available, it will go back to the default serif like that. But Inter is what is going to try first. Then when the Inter is not there, it will try Railway. But they have connected all this to their site too. Not that you just use it anyhow. Any font, because there's no way you know that that font is on the user system. What do? You help them to download it for them to use on that page alone. So you can actually point the browser to where to get the font later on. That I'm going to be telling you how to connect our local font or connect to Google font when we're working on a design. Because most of the design, we don't have the font on our system, but they give us the link to get the font. What we just need to do is to connect it to the page. And the way we connect it is just the same way that we connected this CSS at the top. I told you that this link is not just meant for CSS. So that's what we'll be using later too, to connect to external styles like that. So it will download the font, it will set up it for us based on what is coming from Google here. So this is the free stuff you can use. So let me even go there. So font.google. So you can go there, you search for any font that you want, and they will give you the code to connect to your page. And you can start using that font on the page. So Google comes with different fonts that you can use. You just need to search for them. As you can see, that Roboto that I mentioned that time, this is a Noto Sans. As you can see, this Boogie, whatever stuff. So if you want to use for our heading now, what we can just do is to click on it like that. So it's going to bring it out. And the next thing we just need to do is to click on Get Fonts. And as you can see, you can get the embedded code, which is what we need, or you can actually download it on your system. But you know there's no way you'll be telling the user to be coming here to be downloading this stuff. We don't need to do that. What we can just do is to embed the stuff in our HTML page, and the Google will take care of everything. As you can see, this is what we just need to do. As you can see that it's still the same thing. So it's going to come to the here, then pick the font, and as you can see, it's going to. I'm going to talk about what is weight soon. And as you can see, it's still style sheet. What it's doing is it's doing CSS too, but it's helping us to set up this font. If you check the link, you see that what it's just doing is setting up the font face, which is something I've not talked about. But once we get to the custom one, you see how we are going today. But let me copy this. Then going back to our page, just paste it. Let me paste it before this one so that it will download it first before getting into our file. So connect it. Now we have access to it, but you must be connected to internet because you know you have to go to this Google to get the font. Again, in order for us to use it, can you see what you need to use? Overpass. Again, when it's loading, we want to have a fallback so that it doesn't use something else for us. So just copy this one like that. Then going back to the page or in our CSS. So what we just need to do is to just paste the stuff like that. So save, and going back to our page, once this thing is done loading, you see that there's some kind of a switching going on there, because you firstly go there, you can see that it's kind of like a sharp switch depending on your network. Sometimes it can take time to load and so forth like that. And again, this font is not even showing like the way I want it like that. Let me get another one there. Where is it? So regular 400. I will talk about this one soon. Let me even talk about it. As you can see, we have weight and we have we have styles rather. So under the styles, this is where you can specify whether you want your text to be in italics or you want it to be normal. And again, too, we have weight. What is the thickness of that your text? No, we normally use B tag to make our text to be bold. You can actually do the same thing in your CSS by using font style. So this is what you can use to make your text to be in italics. So when it says the style should be in italic, as you can see, it's going to change to italic there. Again, we have the font weight. What is the thickness of that your text? So depending on the font you are using, as you can see, you can use 100 to 900. But you don't just use them anyhow. You have to use it based on what the font is giving you. So if you look at this font now, as you can see, the only thing is adding there. Where is it? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? I think it's even loading from 0 to 900. But it supports, so where is it? Let me expand this in very well so that I can show. As you can see, these fonts here now, it's this regular 400 like that. Or you can even go to both, but let me go to a better font that actually have a lot of weight that you can see there like that. So going back to the page, 2 fonts selected. We'll ask you to select 2 fonts. So this is not the one I want. Is this the name of the font? This is not giving, that's not the name of the font because the thing is not displaying correctly. So you can see here now, this one only have 400. That is really weight it have there. But going back to the previous pages, I can go to other fonts like this one now. This winking sans like that. So scroll down, you see that this one have, can you see, it have 300 weights. It have 300 for italics. This is how it's going to look like when you say the style should be italic and the weight should be 300. So when you say the weight should be 400, which is the default one for all the P, this is how it's going to look like. This is how it's going to look like for 400 italic. This is 500. This is italic. This is what? 600. So when you're using this font, this is the weight it's going to give you when you use font weight of 600. So when you mention 700, this is how it's going to come outside. When you say 800, this is how it's going to be. When you say 900, this is how it's going to come outside there like that. And we can actually get it too. So get font. As you can see, it's selecting all the font that I picked before. So let me just copy it. Can you see? It has overpass, which is not what I want. What I actually want is this. Where's that one set? This, yeah, this is what I want. This G tints here like this. That's the one I want. Why is it showing overpass for me here? Yeah, so this is the one I actually want to use that time. So as you can see, that this is the color, because as I said, it's not showing the stuff on the page. Overpass that I'm using is what I've picked before when I was doing other thing. So close the stuff, and for the weight, you know, it's just 400 that is there. So if you pick any other thing, it will not work because you can only use the the stuff that it have. Can you see now? It's not working. So if I want to use the other one too, which is the new one that we just picked, so scroll down. As you can see, that one is this wiki sans, like that. So copy the stuff like this. It's always good that you put them in a quote anytime there's a space or a legal character. But it's not a must that you put quotes when it is just one single stuff like that. You can put it or you can put it so it will work. Again, now as you can see, I put wiki first. So if you find wiki, use it, forget about the other one. But if this one is not available, then pick this one. And I think we've already copied all the font. Have you copied it? No, it will not work. You can see that we only have bogey tints and we have overpass. So we've not really copied that one. So now saving the code, you see that we are not going to see that one. What we'll still be seeing is that our bogey, as you can see, is still the one that is showing. Because that first one, browser doesn't know where it's coming from. And we've not really connected to it. So in order for this thing to work, we just need to go back into that place, then copy the code again, which is this one. Then go back to our HTML, delete everything that we have before, like this, then replace it with the new one. So go back to the page, and once it loads, as you can see now, you can see that it's a, because depending on the internet, you have to load the font. Why it's still loading? It will pick the default one first, and once you can see now, it has already catch the stuff, like it already knew about it, so it's not refresh again. It save it already in the storage. So once I save it, or if I want, just hold and click on this thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. If you hold this in and click, you can actually clear cache and refresh. But you can even open your tab or this DevTools. When you open your DevTools, sometimes or most of the time, it doesn't catch it. It will refresh the new stuff every time you open the DevTools like that. So as you can see now, it's using this our font. So you can use different fonts. Just mention the family, and if you have it on your system, it will work. If you don't have it, it will not work. So you have to go to all these Google. If you click on this link, you see that it's actually setting up some CSS for us, and that's what is doing there like that. So tomorrow we are going to continue from there by talking about this. All these other ones, they are not much, but we are going to talk about this text align, text transform, text decoration, and again too, we move to some of the background property like that. So that's going to be all for today. Or let me join this one to you, because I think I still have a little bit of time. So let me quickly join that one into it, because it's actually small, it's not much. So text align is what you can use to align your text. As you can see, you can align to center, to the left, or to the right. Majorly, most of the time, you want your text to be center. So once you save, as you can see now, all the heading are going to be the center. Or if you don't want it to be like that, we can use text align. Who asks you to come outside? So you can use text align to be left, which is what is there by default. But I want to use right. Your text will be coming from right to left, like the Arabic this stuff like that. So this is right, or leave it the way it is by default, which is going to be the left. So the other one that we have is the text transform. So this is what you can use to transform your text from one case to the other case. As you can see, we have capitalize. So what is capitalize? What it's going to do is that it will capitalize, like the first starting point of each word will be in uppercase, then the remaining one will remain the way you type it. It will not change it to lowercase. So capitalize. It will look at the starting point of each one of the word and take it to up, like uppercase. Then the remaining one, the way it is. So which means here now, if I save this stuff, as you can see, the CSS did not come down. What it's doing is that it will take the starting point of each one of them and take it up, leave the remaining one. It doesn't care about the remaining text there. So without this line, you see that that tool is, because I type it in small, but I want starting point of each one of them to be in upper. So changing it to capitalize, it will make sure that the starting point, only the starting point of each word. It doesn't care about the way you type the remaining one. So if you type the remaining one as capital letter, they will remain that way. That's why you see that the CSS still remain in capital letter. But if you want to convert everything, you can just uppercase them like this. And as you can see, everything will be in capital letter, or lowercase like that. everything is going to be small letter. It doesn't care. As you can see, everything has been converted to small letter like that. And lastly, the one we have there is this text decoration, which is really useful anytime you need to decorate your text, like putting underline. That's where it comes in. There, that's where we normally use it. Because if you look at the link, anytime you have link, you know you always have this line under it. That's what the browser is applying by default. So it's applying this text decoration. So when you mention text decoration is a shorthand property, because this single property can apply or you can change multiple things at the same time. This is our fourth shorthand property. When you see shorthand property, what that thing means is that with that single property, you can change multiple things at once. But what are the multiple things you are changing? It all depends on that property. But for this text decoration, we can use it to change the type of the line, the color of the line, then the style of the line, and the thickness of the line. We have a separate property for each one of them, so you can use to change each one of them. But this single text decoration can change all of them at once. So which means you just mention all this property. So that you can use the single one to change the type of the line you want, the style of the line, the color of the line, and the thickness of the line, even though we have a separate property to change each one of them. So these four stuff that you are specifying for this single one, you can change each one of them on a separate line. But this one here now, you can use it to change it at once. And this is what we call shorthand property. There is a lot of them you are going to be seeing later on. Even the same thing to this font. As you can see, there's a lot of fonts we are mentioning here. That's a shorthand property for you, which is just you saying font directly like this. Once you just say font, you can use it to change the family, to change the style, to change the size. So some of these property, you can change them at once. As you can see, that single property, you can change style, you can change the variant, you can change the weight, you can change the size, you can change the line height, and you can change font family on one line. But I don't normally use it because you have to arrange it properly like that. So that's why you don't see people using it, because the way you arrange the value determines how it's going to work. But for this one, you can arrange it anyhow. Whether it's the line coming first or the style or the color or thickness, it will still work. Just mention the value. It knows how to pick them like that. The same thing to background too. It has shorthand, but that one too is crazy like that. The way you have to arrange it correctly. If you don't arrange it correctly, it will not work. So we don't use it like that, but you can use it too if you want. So for this text decoration now, we can mention the type of the line that we want there. Or let me even move this into a separate line. So here we have a text decoration. So we can mention the type of the line that we want. As you can see, we have different type of line. We have line through. Just like if you go to Jumia, you see that they have their normal price and they have the, so you see that there is a line on top of it. What they are using there is line through to do that stuff on their page. So clicking on the stuff, or if you go to some of their product, yeah, so this is what I'm looking for. So as you can see, the normal price is, where are you? This is not going again. So we have this 7 whatever stuff. Let me go back to that way, to that place that is displaying. As you can see here, the normal price is, they are saying is 13 whatever stuff like that, which is active. So you have 444 whatever stuff. This is the original price. The price might be 500, but they take it up here and they now bring it by removing how much, like 40 something thousand. But they want you to rush it. So you have this, and as you can see, you have the one that is having line. So how do you to do something like that? So we can use our text decoration by saying line through. So once we mention the, as you can see, I only mentioned one of the property there. The rest, it's still working. It picked the color of the text. But what if I don't want the color of the text? I want to change the color to something else, then I can apply the color too. If you don't mention the color, it will pick the color of the text. So now, again, what is the style? This is the line type, but what is the style? There like that. So you can have like dash, and you can have dotted, you can have double, and so forth like that. It's going to bring the stuff but you know, all this one, you don't really see them being used. So the style is always going to be solid. This is what normally used to be there. Solid, which is just this. Again, too, the thickness is being picked by the browser by default. So to see the thickness the browser is using, just inspect it, and it's going to show you what the CSS. You know, we did not apply some property. They are just there. So what is the browser using by default? So you can just go down and go under the computed and go down under the text decoration. As you can see the color. See the, can you see that the style is solid? Then the thickness is auto, which is picking it automatically based on the browser. But I don't want it to be auto. I want it to be my own size. So 5 pixels are like, can you see that I'm not using the units now? Pixels, because I don't want this thing to change. 5, 5. No matter what is going on the page, maintain that 5. But most of the one is always 1 that you see. Just 1 pixels, just tiny stuff around the thing like this. So this is a text decoration. I see some other text property, but we don't really need them right now. Again, too, this one is not line through that I want. I want it to be underline. Again, too, we have overline if you want, which is something I've never seen before. I've never seen anybody using this one. What you always see is underline or line through. Most especially underline is what you always see like that. But line through still is there. So underline is what you see like that. But what if you don't mention the style? As you can see, nothing is coming out because you don't need to mention the type of the line that you want. And as you can see, the stuff it's coming out on the page. So these are the properties that we need. So tomorrow we are going to start with the background property, which is very important too. And that's where you'll be able to do or to apply background image, background color. Because if you look at this side now, so you can see it has this kind of so that's background image going on at that place. So we should be able to do something like that. Again, too, if you go to other site, you know, this one did not use any background. All of them are just using background color. But there are some sites you are going to see that they are using background image. Even Remita here actually use it. Going back to their main page, if they have not removed it or is even yet here, can you see this thing at the back? That's background image. They like that because at the back of the content, so it's background image that they are using at that place. Go to their own page too. They are doing something like that too. So you can see this picture of this lady at the back. So this is background image going on that page. So that is going to be all stuff.